Reminisce with me for a second. You're reading your favorite childhood book, The Berenstain Bears, while a Disney movie plays in the background. Tinkerbell starts writing out Disney and dots the I for the magic to begin. Or maybe you're watching Looney Tunes. Craving a snack, you ask your mom to make you your favorite peanut butter sandwich with Jiffy peanut butter. Now let's talk about some of your favorite movie quotes. Luke, I am your father. Lucy, you got some splaining to do. Do you want to play a game? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? What if I told you everything you knew was a lie? No, seriously. I don't know why I said it like that. Hello there. I got a new background. If you're here from my Instagram or my previous video, thank you for joining me again. I really appreciate it. And if you're new, welcome. I'm so grateful you're here. We're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect today. The Mandela Effect is when a large group of people remember an event that occurred, well, that didn't actually happen. Or they remember a specific item a certain way when it's never been that way. There are so many Mandela Effect examples in pop culture today. I'm only going to be talking about a couple today, and one in particular that I find very interesting and a little suspicious for sure. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But first I want to explain where the Mandela Effect term was originated. The term was coined in 2009 by Fiona Broome, a self-identified paranormal researcher / author. This was after relaying the events of Nelson Mandela's death to a colleague. She recalled him dying in prison in the 1980s. She was describing news coverage and the speeches, including one from his widow about his death. The catch is none of that had actually happened, as this was 2009 and Nelson Mandela had passed away in 2013. He died at the age of 95 after suffering from a prolonged respiratory infection in his estate in South Africa in 2013. Now here's where it gets a little weird. It would be one thing if Broome's misremembering was an isolated incident, but it wasn't. There were thousands of people that could recall and recite the exact same events that Broome was discussing. So, the Mandela Effect was born. If you have heard of the Mandela Effect, I'm sure you've heard the movie lines and Curious George and the one about the Monopoly Man. So I'm going to try to talk about some that I think are maybe lesser known. And yeah, we'll get right into it. Okay, we're going to start with one that kind of boggled my mind a little bit. So when I say chartreuse, what color do you think? I'll give you a sec. If you chose lime green, you are right. This one kind of surprised me because I was actually a little embarrassed. Because I do paint and I've taken color theory, and yet I still, like, every time I've heard chartreuse, I've thought of a pink color, but nope. Apparently not. So next one. King Henry VIII and the famous painting with the turkey leg, and all of the following depictions of him in cartoons and comics with the turkey leg, right? Everyone knows. Well, no such painting has actually ever existed. He is holding a little bag in the original painting, so no idea where this turkey leg came from and why the entire world just ran with it. All right, now think about We Are the Champions, the song. How does it end? Does it end with Of the World or just We Are the Champions? I'll let you think about that for a second. Well, if you thought it ends with Of the World, it doesn't. And it never has. That one may be less of a shock because it does say like Of the World throughout the song, but I could have sworn it ended with like Of the World, just like nice little fade out after that, but no. This next one actually got my mom and I Googling for, I swear it was like 45 minutes one night, because we both were very, very adamant that we had remembered this, that we could like recall this specific Disney intro when it never actually existed. They're very similar types, but there's a specific scenario where Tinkerbell writes out Disney and then dots the I, and then it goes into the big magical burst, and she kind of flies across the screen, and then she does the wand thing, and then it blacks out, and it's a transition to the movie. But it doesn't exist. The closest thing I could find was the Blu-ray intro, but there is no Disney intro where she actually writes out Disney. And that floored me. It floored me. I was like, everything I know is a lie. Oh my goodness. So the next three are Statue of Liberty specific, the one located in New York. So first example, what's the tallest point on the Statue of Liberty you can climb to today? A, the torch, or B, the crown? It's actually the crown. Access to the torch has been banned since 1916, yet there are thousands of people kicking around who blatantly remember climbing up to the torch today. So how is this possible if it's been closed for over 100 years? And these are people, like these are middle-aged people, people in their 20s who are remembering climbing up to the torch. So, and in order to climb to the torch, you have to climb up a 40-foot ladder through this tube. So I tried to find somebody who spoke about climbing up to the torch and also mentioned this ladder, but I couldn't find it. So unfortunately, I was really curious to see if there was somebody that specifically remembers climbing up this ladder up to the torch as for public access. Magic again. Number 2. What is the name of the island the Statue of Liberty sits on? Is it Ellis Island or Liberty Island? The Statue of Liberty sits on Liberty Island. You'd think that that makes a lot of sense. However, there are thousands of people, even in like the New York area, New Jersey area, who recall the island being called Ellis Island, that the Statue of Liberty was erected on. It's actually kind of crazy. If you compare the Google trends, like the Google search trends, when was the Statue of Liberty placed on Ellis Island and when was the Statue of Liberty placed on Liberty Island, literally no one is Googling when the Statue of Liberty was placed on Liberty Island. It's Ellis Island that people are looking for. So, Me personally, I wasn't sure. That one didn't really shock me a whole lot because I didn't know. When I read that the Statue of Liberty was on Liberty Island, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, apparently a lot of people grew up thinking that the Statue of Liberty was placed on Ellis Island. Now that one, so I was doing some Google searching, and it says the park is comprised of two separate islands, Liberty Island and Ellis Island. The Statue of Liberty herself is sitting on Liberty Island. So I feel like that has an influencing factor to it, maybe, possibly. Sisters, not twins. Although these are like second cousins, twice removed. Yikes. Oh. Okay. So this next one is the one that, this one baffles me a little bit, actually. So much so, I took to my Instagram and I asked people, like through the poll on Instagram story, if they've actually heard of this event, because before researching it, I never had, and it kind of shocks me that so many people just don't know, because it seems fairly substantial. So yes, let me explain. So Black Tom Island, now known as Liberty State Park. So this is an event that seems to have just slipped by, skated right under the wire in a lot of people's memory of World War I. Memory or learning about World War I. So in 1916, World War I had been going on for 2 years at this point. Excuse me. USA had announced that they were remaining neutral in this war. Even though they were neutral, they were a major supplier of ammunition for Britain and France. All of this ammunition was being stored on what was known as Black Tom Island, just off the coast of New York. So this island is about 2,000 feet away from Liberty Island, where the Statue of Liberty is and was. So Germany had sent 3 secret agents to American soil, and their location was Black Tom Island. One of them was actually working at the plant where the ammunition was stored, and then the 2 snuck onto the island via boats, or via, however. They snuck onto the island from boats. So the morning of July 30th, 1916, they set up bombs, just chemical bombs, around the island to set this massive fire. This resulted in the largest artificial non-nuclear explosion recorded in history at that point. It had a 25-mile radius of damage and took out a lot of downtown Manhattan. Along with that, it's actually the most damage the Statue of Liberty has ever seen, ever. She took a lot of damage on her skirt and her arm and the torch, which is actually what caused the closure of the torch to begin with. And this was the only attack on American soil during World War I. So why does nobody know about it? I have a couple of theories, maybe. I know because America didn't join World War I until 1917, after Germany had attacked merchant and passenger ships in the British Isles. So I don't know if it was just like people were like, this happened, but they didn't decide to join till later. So I know. A side note, I think it's really funny because Germany actually wasn't pegged for it until 1939. And the Secret Services were blaming mosquitoes at one point for the explosion. I have no idea how that would even work, but I thought that was really funny. When I read that, I was like, okay. The case actually wasn't closed until 1953 because, of course, once they found out Germany was the culprit behind the attack in 1939, the Holocaust was in full force at that point. And of course, Hitler was like, nah, I'm not paying for that. So after the events happening in Germany at that point, the newly reformed Federal Republic of Germany, the new government that after Hitler's demise, they agreed to settle the case and paid for the damage, which was around $95 million at that point, for all the repairs. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this explosion, like it resulted in a large sway in the public opinion of Germany, obviously, and it also sparked the development of domestic intelligence agencies in the U.S. Because, they got attacked. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's weird that no one knows about it. I watched a ton of videos of people going over the events of Black Tom, and it all starts with, did you know? And there were a lot of people that were from New York, grew up in New York and New Jersey, that had no idea. And to be fair, like, you'd think out of anyone who would know of the Black Tom explosion, it would be people in New York, if anything. So that one kind of baffles me a little bit, a little suspicious, not sure what's going on there. So was this event just inserted into our timeline? So let's bring it back a little bit. What's behind the Mandela Effect? Some people believe that it's caused by a collision of parallel universes where it's causing the timelines to overlap. That's why some people remember all these different things a certain way and others don't. Some others believe that it's the result of time travel and these stronger intellectuals surviving the butterfly effect and the course of history shifting. Others believe it's a glitch in the Matrix. Beyond that, there are many theories that fall under more the pseudoscience category. So I'm going to talk about a more likely explanation, which is false memory and social effects. So this involves mistakenly recalling events and experiences that never actually happened. And in day-to-day life, this is actually super common. Confabulation is the unconscious manufacture of fabricated or misinterpreted memories. So a U.S. professor of psychology, Jim Cohen, I think is how you say that? Cohen? He actually demonstrated how easily this can occur. He used a procedure known as lost at a mall now on his brother, where he described a situation when he was a kid being lost in a mall. It never happened, but his brain started to play along and was like, oh yeah, and actually was adding details and fabricating more parts of the story, when in reality this never actually happened. So Elizabeth Loftus, a cognitive psychologist and expert on the human memory, actually recreated this experiment on a larger sample of people. And so they fed these people who had never been lost in a mall as a child this first-person story of a child being lost in a mall. 3 weeks later, they asked the sample group to come back, and they were asking them questions to recall this story, and 25% of those subjects did not realize that it was a false story and they had never actually experienced it. So their brain had taken that story and turned it into a memory, essentially. Another experiment was conducted with a scenario of a car crash, where a group of people were given a scenario detailing a car crash. And then later they were asked questions about the car crash. And they found that leading questions where the verbs had been altered actually altered how people remembered the story. So instead of saying, how fast was car A going when the cars collided, as opposed to, how fast was car A going when the cars smashed into each other or bumped into each other, changing that verb actually altered how people remembered the story. So it's kind of interesting how unreliable human memory is. But I do think it's still kind of a little weird that a ton of people will remember it one way as opposed to the other. And I would really love to know like an explanation for Black Tom. I mean, I do live in Canada, so we might not have learned about Black Tom in the same sense that like the States probably didn't learn about the Halifax explosion that happened during World War I in Canada. That is totally viable. I do think it's a little weird that not many, like, from what I could see anyway, not many people had heard of Black Tom in the States. That's a little weird to me, but I mean, yeah, who knows? The Black Tom one is definitely a little suspicious to me. I still don't really understand, but because it's not so much people remember it one way and a lot of people remember it another way. It's just people just never learned about it or heard about it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's like coming up as like a new event that happened in World War I. So that's a little strange to me, but I'm not an expert by any means. I'm not a psychologist by any means. Yeah, so I just popped on some lashes. I added some white lines to represent like maybe like goo or whatever from the skin being kind of elegantly torn apart. But yeah, that's it. That's all for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys being here. I hope you enjoyed yourself because I had a lot of fun making it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Maybe if you have other Mandela effects that you find really fascinating, or if you heard one in this video that you'd never heard of before, or if you have your own theory about it. I'd love to hear it. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
I forgive the pain you gave to me so long ago. chance, I'll lay to